Just how damaging are these comments by Emmanuel Macron?
Yeah, good morning, Eileen, and good morning to your viewers. Look, I think yet again he makes a fool of himself, and this is not just Conservative Brexiteers arguing this. In the last few years, he's offended quite a few countries. He's offended the Poles, he's offended the Hungarians, he's even managed to offend Western European allies as well. He does have a habit of saying things that he then rows back on and later regrets. And for me, you cannot be equidistant between democracy and authoritarianism, and you cannot be equidistant between the rule of international law and the rights of big states to invade smaller states. You just can't get away with that. What we need to do, all democracies need to come together to show China a really strong position over what it can and cannot do. And when the French cut and run and play their own games with the Chinese, as they're clearly trying to do now, it damages France because it makes it look frankly, like a bad ally, and it frankly damages the Western alliance as well. So I wish he'd maybe just think a little bit more before he opens his mouth, to put it bluntly.
Well, Bob, I mean, he obviously thinks that there is a role for Europe to have some sort of strategic autonomy and to become this third superpower. I mean, why do you think he's made that assessment? And is he trying to push Europe in a particular direction on foreign policy and indeed in defence as well?
Okay, for a long time, the French have wanted to dominate the foreign and defence affairs of the European Union and to present the European Union as some kind of superpower, which France de facto leads. The Germans pay for, but the French lead. And so this has long been an aim of the French, and they've never been able to deliver on it. Not only because the Germans want American involvement in Europe, not only because since the Ukraine invasion, all the Eastern Bloc European Union members look to NATO and look to the US and indeed the UK as well for military and foreign affairs leadership. And so for these reasons, the French have always tried to maneuver the European Union into having a defence capability, and they've always failed. And unless they're willing to pay for it, and the Germans are willing to pay for it, which they're not, they're always going to be failing. And so effectively, we need to recognise that it's the Americans who pay for the bulk of NATO, certainly the effective bit of it, with the Brits as a second. It's the Americans who are paying for the supporting Ukraine, again, with the Brits as an important secondary role. And frankly, if the French need to realise what the reality of world politics is, and that is that democracies need to hold together when confronted by tyranny, when confronted by authoritarianism, and when confronted by Russia and China and indeed Iran. And every time the French try to cut their own deal, try to be equidistant between a democratic superpower and an authoritarian superpower, they undermine and damage us all, and actually they undermine and damage themselves most of all.
Bob, thanks so much for joining me. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this as Parliament resumes again tomorrow. And thanks for joining us from what is a lovely venue by the looks of it. Thanks to Bob Seeley.